We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by GraniteGrok.com, New Hampshire's conservative website. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for 2 hours of news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com. Grok Talk.
So as I said in the pre-show, while Jean Shaheen was up all night pimping for global warming, she who also gets campaign contributions from a petroleum lobbyist, northern New Hampshire got a whole bunch of snow, and we all saw all these nice people driving north with their snowmobiles and their skis on the cars to enjoy some excellent, what is bound to be some very excellent March winter tourism weather. And this is important because 6 years ago, candidate Shaheen, the armchair climatologist, was scaremongering everybody in the tourism industry with fears of snowless winters in New Hampshire.
But worse than that, what you may also have noticed was the activists running around in fake gas pump costumes castigating John E. Sununu for taking money from petroleum companies.
Yes, and they were complaining about the high price of gasoline, which is now how much higher?
Yeah.
At least a third higher than it was then.
You don't see anybody from groups like all these New Hampshire nonprofit progressive groups running around in gas station costumes complaining about the burden on New Hampshire families of high energy prices. That's because they're hypocrites, but we knew that.
Yeah. No, that was some great work that you did on that post to show that Jean Shaheen takes money from big oil. And yet, as everybody knows, Scott Brown decided to announce his exploratory committee.
He's on our list. Joe Kenny wins, EC District 1. We'll talk about that, I hope. Scott Brown is exploring in a big way because our email boxes are flooded with garbage about Scott Brown's exploration. Also, the other thing we might want to visit is, did Dr. Evil steal a Malaysian jetliner? And before I get too far, I want to let people know who's going to be on the show today. Bill O'Connor, a lifelong resident currently living in Barrington, New Hampshire, is going to be joining us. He has started a PAC called SABRE PAC. He is also currently the Strafford County GOP chairman and a former state rep. We also have Scott Wilson, the president of the Connecticut Citizens Defense League. We're going to talk about the ex post facto institution of criminality for people who already owned rifles and guns that the state has now deemed dangerous to the population.
Scary. Because they're black.
Scary guns. And then we have two commenters, Alan and Radical Moderate. I don't even know what his real name is, but they'll be joining us in the third segment to talk about whatever it is we're going to talk about. Anyway, so.
And happy St. Patrick's Day. 2 out of the 3 of us. Wave your hand.
I'm waving. I'm waving out that way.
Yeah.
Look that way. I'm not just
2 out of the 3 of us. Well, there's Mr. Bill. Come on in, Mr. Bill. You can join us. You're early. That's right. Just like our guest last week, Pam Tucker. She was really early.
Well, it's better to be early than late.
Yeah. But anyways, and he has a light shade of green on as well. So 3 out of the 4 of us are ready for St. Patty's.
I'm sorry. That doesn't look like green to me at all. I have green eyes. I don't need to wear green.
Yeah, but they can't see that.
You got to be a little better position for the mic there.
So, yep. All right. But yeah, I going back to what I was about to say.
Let's just say I am the nonconformist here.
Okay.
We'd never have guessed.
So,
MacDonald.
Yeah, I am MacDonald. My grandmother's name is Desmond. I have Irish. I'm Scottish as well, but okay. All right, so let's bring Bill in. Anyway, you were saying.
Yes, your post about Jean Shaheen was very timely and apropos because right after Scott Brown announced, I'm on everybody's email list, including the Jean Shaheen email list, and I put a post up. And, Jean Shaheen has been awarded prizes and certificates saying that she's one of the civil people. And her campaign immediately put out an email fundraising one where the subject was obscene. It's obscene that Scott Brown has come into the race. And now you have to give us money before the big oil comes in to support Scott Brown.
This is curious because not much is obscene to the Democrat Party.
No, they promote your ability to be licentious and obscene.
Yeah, but it was nice to be able to point out in my post that, oh, by the way, it isn't just Scott Brown who's taking the oil money, it's Jean Shaheen herself.
The NRSC monitors some of the stuff that we post about her, so they were really excited to see that. They were also excited when I told them that she takes money from Mark Pryor and Mary Landrieu, who also take money from the Koch brothers, so she is therefore tied to Koch money. They thought that was awesome. Which is why I posted that picture of her with a little have a Coke and a smile
yes.
button.
Yeah. Well, I prefer the Green Wicked Witch of the West one that we've had at Greenwich Rock for quite some time for Jean Shaheen. You can go ahead and click on that.
Yeah, but isn't that obscene?
No, that's sophomoric humor, which is okay by me.
It is. It's Alinsky. It's ridicule. It's awesome. That's what we're
well,
all about.
Well, I'm thinking of Alinsky. Mm-hmm. So this week you pointed out, as did Skip in many, many words, the illiteracy of Terry Norelli's promotion of an increase in the minimum wage, which is guaranteed to price out of the market the very people, especially people of color, that really need to get a job of any sort at any price so they can work their way up and exceed the minimum wage.
It's their war on work, yes.
But thankfully for the economically illiterate, the cartoonists were going overboard all the prior week, and I found an amassed set of wisdom, shall we say, for Terry's benefit so that she can understand exactly what it is the minimum wage does, like price people out of the market, cut off the lower rungs of the ladder. If you go to Greenwich Rock
and you go into the search bar at the top right, and you put in minimum wage, you will get like 15 pages of posts on minimum wage.
There is so much.
We have covered this subject, we have beaten it to death, and we're not done yet.
And it is racist because of the way it works. Minimum wages were instituted in the 30s by the white unions of the Northeast to keep those evil colored people from the South, who were hard-working, in some cases better craftsmen, who had in some cases escaped slavery and set up their own businesses as expert craftsmen. They were moving north as expert craftsmen to build buildings. The black people of D.C. built many of the buildings in D.C. in the 19th and early 20th century. And so the union and mobster honchos of the Northeast didn't like this too much because it was competition for the old boys. And it was a deliberate intent of minimum wage laws and prevailing wage laws to shut the black contractors out, especially of government business.
Well, the progressive eugenicist brain trust of the 30s, 20s, 30s, and 40s has openly admitted that the entire purpose of the minimum wage was to first price out unskilled and black labor so that they would then produce fewer children because they couldn't afford them, and they would eventually go away. It was just another part of the eugenicist experiment. So they figured that they could get people to stop expanding, and if they didn't have opportunity, they were basically eliminating their opportunity.
And that shows again economic ignorance. If you look at what actually happens around the world, the poorest populations produce the most children. A lot of them die off too, but basically they're playing their version of life's lottery to see if they can have enough children to keep them in their old age.
Right, and Western democracies, you see the birth rates go down. People who come up here from Mexico, I think it's 2 or 3 generations in, they go from having 6 to 8 kids to having like 1 or 2.
Right,
and it's just because they become prosperous and they can afford to support themselves and they have fewer children. It's just the way it works. If you go to Europe, where they've taken it several steps further, they're going the wrong direction. They're not having enough children.
They are already the preview of the Eloy from the H.G. Wells Time Machine, the race that's dying out because it just can't be bothered. The Japanese have in fact already got there, and kids and young adults of the prime age for having babies not merely are not having babies because of birth control, whether the government pays or not. They just don't want sex. They've had enough. They don't care. They are not motivated to preserve their version of the human race anymore.
Poor Bill's going like, I can't believe these guys.
Welcome to Grok Talk.
But those are actual facts on the ground.
And this is just all off the cuff, top 5-6 minutes of the show.
Well,
did you want to add something?
He's embarrassed.
Mike, I just wanted to say how wrong you are about that. I have one daughter, so I'm part of the problem. It's not because of a lack of...
His arms are blushing.
No. Well, it was mostly because we had one that was really good, really easy. And out of laziness, we decided not to have another one. So, and it's not because I don't like sex or anything like that.
No. I know it's not. It's not that far in the West. It has actually progressed to that stage in Japan.
Yeah,
that young adults have, in fact, lost interest in sex. There is no drive left to continue the human race in Japan. It has actually happened. In prosperous Western societies, as Steve pointed out, it's a choice to have more or less kids.
Well, in Russia, for example, it's been such a lousy place to live that they've been underproducing children for decades.
Yeah. Well, exactly so. Whereas, in places that are poor, you tend to overproduce kids as a natural mechanism, defense against high death rates, and something to keep you in your old age.
Yeah. Well, you're seeing also the part of what we haven't brought up is taxes. It's very expensive now to bring up children, and our taxes are going up more and more in a lot of cases. And you see a lot of the tax reform is aiming towards being more family friendly. You hear from the progressives all the time that, well, we have to provide daycare as a right because it's so expensive to live nowadays that both parents have to work. Well, both parents as far as Democrats are concerned. But, when you have two parents working for the most part, you get up into those tax brackets where you start looking at your paycheck stub and go, oh my gosh, look how much I'm not keeping. So if they were to cut the taxes, cut the size of government, I believe this is one of those ancillary side effects of a large government where it's gotten so expensive they need more taxes, which means you've got to send the other person out to make a wage. If they cut the size of government, cut the taxes, then you could have somebody at home all the time, which used to be the norm up until about the 1960s, 1970s. And that's really when government took off.
And isn't that ironic? Because that's exactly when the war on poverty started. Which, by the way, poverty's won.
Yeah.
The war on poverty started, and as a result, it's become hugely expensive for people that are working to keep their standard of living afloat, while the people that don't work are basically being encouraged to live off the fat of the land and reproduce it at leisure at our expense.
Yeah, and I saw that running a daycare all the time where, a lot of families would have one or two. They said, we can't afford that, but then we had people coming in with state aid, and they were some of our larger families because they did not have to bear the financial responsibility of what they had done in their own private lives. And this is one reason why, once again, I'm seeing out in the blogosphere that the advice being given to elected Republicans is, let's not talk about the social issues. Well, they just don't seem to freaking understand that every social issue has a financial cost because the progressives have put government so far into private life that they can't help but have a financial interest in whatever we do, everything that we do.
If we could get Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich to agree in the mid-'90s that winding back welfare was a good idea, that having welfare-to-work programs, that encouraging the moms to get jobs instead of have more kids actually was good for them, and a lot of people got out of poverty that way, why is it such a bad idea for Republicans to espouse those principles today?
Poor Bill's head is like on a swivel, back and forth and back and forth. Welcome to the ADD bunch here. But I will tell you, watching the single moms bringing these kids into the daycare and trying to hand them over to the teachers, especially in the beginning, it was heart-rending to see the anguish, not just in the single moms' faces, but in the kids, and watching how that really did upset the kids on a long-term basis, especially with some of these folks who would have a boyfriend for 2 or 3 months. The kid gets attached. The mom and the boyfriend come in, and the kid runs over, gives the boyfriend a hug. And then all of a sudden, the boyfriend's not around anymore. And that's when we would see the emotional problems surface again in the kids. And we'd see this over and over and over again. And I look at it as government's at fault for this because you've made it so easy for these single moms to have government daddy, government husband, instead of a real husband. Okay? The problem really comes in with the kids, and now we're starting to reap some of that.
All right, 60-second break. We'll be right back.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Grok Talk.
Okay, we are back. We are back. We are back. I'm just having some fun.
He has a button fetish.
No, I don't. Stop it. Shh, quiet. Now everybody knows.
The buttons have a Steve fetish. They keep jumping up at his fingers.
They do. I go like this and they just jump up.
Bill's going...
Welcome back to Grok Talk.
Oh, my gosh. What have I got myself into?
If you listen to the show more, you'd know what you were going to be in for. So,
I liked the show last week. I listened to the Pam Tucker part. But you should have both of us at the same time. That would be fun.
You know, I will.
Have you.
We'd have to pull out the duct tape and shut ourselves up. I'll let you two have it.
I have to admit, it is fun to get her laughing. And because once she starts laughing once, then it's very easy to get her laughing a second time. And when we're just being normal, for some reason she just thinks it's amusing. So now we have to work at getting you to start laughing more.
Oh, you've got me laughing. I when I was a little kid, I went to daycare, before kindergarten started or whatever, and I still remember that. I hated that.
Yeah. No,
I worked 2 jobs so my wife could stay home and raise my kids.
Yeah, I mean, we did the same thing. My wife has a double major, early childhood education and elementary ed. We made the decision that she was going to stay home. And she ran a home daycare for a while. And then when the kids started to go to school, we bought a daycare center and ran that for a while. And we really ran it on the idea that if you had to work, we were here and we tried to do the best we could. And what we found was that's not what people wanted. There were a lot of working couples, no doubt about it, the majority of our customer base. But then there were those that were just on state aid. They just wanted to get rid of the kids for a while. That was it, and that was sad to see, because my wife would have much rather have stayed home and just had the 2 boys.
Hey, so Joe Kenny won.
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful? In spite of the enhanced student turnout in Dartmouth?
No,
there is some debate about that. Ed Nail's already on top of it. He's going to get the checklist. There was 890-something votes for Mike Cryans and 90 votes for Joe Kenny in Hanover. And I went back and looked, and while the Democrats have a huge majority there, it's usually like 70-30, 75-25. This was 91% Democrat and 9% Republican. So it's a little, what it's going to really be is that there's going to be a list of people there that we can kind of check into, because when you convince 890 faculty and college students to all go and vote in a special election in Hanover, what you get is you get this list of names of people who are, A, likely to tell college students to go vote in our state even if they don't live here, a list of college students who don't live here who are inclined to go vote even though they don't live here because their professors told them, and then we can make fun of them on the internet, which is really what we want to do. So
Yes. Granite Grok, especially with you and Ed, have basically said if you put in voter fraud in somebody's name, Granite Grok shows up first.
Well, Gerard at Large has devoted an hour every week to this topic with Ed, and you should check them out at Gerard at Large, because you will get some very current details every Wednesday morning or the days after if you check the website. And anything Ed discovers, whether he shares it with us or not, he talks about it on that show, so that's a great place to look.
And eventually that all is going to rise up in the first page of a Google search. So, folks, if you are college age and you are voting here and you're not supposed to, or one of the professional organizers and you're not supposed to be voting here, trust me, your name will come up. And at some point when you decide to get out of politics and you're looking for a real job, guess what's going to come up on your background check?
You have to understand that there are the state you actually live in, where your driver's license is, if you look at it, there's a picture and there's a state and the name and your address where you really live. If you vote here, the Democrats in New Hampshire are going to tell you to vote here. They don't care if you're breaking laws in your own state. So you need to be aware of what laws you are breaking back home when you let somebody in this state tell you to vote here.
Because sometimes we contact those other states, your home state, and we ask questions. Yeah. New Hampshire AG's office may do absolutely nothing because they're basically not even worth a warm bucket of spit at times.
They're a political organization, and they have been for years, even when AAT was there.
You mean they're less valuable than a vice president, even Joe Biden?
Yep. Absolutely. So, yeah. I mean, you must have seen it out your way.
We had 642 new voters in Barrington the last election. Not this local one, but the last one in November. And the Republicans got their butts kicked.
Was it about 10%? We just about everywhere there was like 10% more.
Yeah, likewise.
It was
new voters.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, a little more than 10%.
Yep, same thing in Hollis.
Merrimack too. We had the single largest turnout for any single polling place ever in America.
In America?
Period. 18,000 people voted from one polling location in Merrimack on November, whatever day it was.
Wow.
Something like that.
I did not know that.
When I drove by to vote before work, there was a line. The line was so long, I just left. I said, screw it, I'll come back after work, because there's no way I can sit in that line for 2.5 hours.
Your vote was suppressed.
It was.
That's what Eric Holder would say. You got your vote suppressed. Oh, wait a minute. You're white. You can't be discriminated against.
I'm also conservative, so I don't count. You can't suppress me.
That's right.
And as in don't count.
Even if you actually suppressed me, it wouldn't be suppression.
Yeah. As in don't count, because if they had any way to do it, they wouldn't count your vote at all.
Right. Exactly. Helicopters, drones, anything to keep me in my house. You're not leaving.
Yeah. But it was nice to see that he won the seat. And it was nice to see.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about Joe. Sorry.
Yes. See, here we go again. But yeah, I think he'll add a nice conservative voice to that executive board.
Chris Sununu's happy to have some company.
I'm quite sure.
Ray's been gone for a little while, so
I wouldn't exactly would have called Ray conservative.
He wasn't conservative at all, but at least he was a little better. Than they say the Democrats.
You know something, and here we go. We can now start talking about Scott Brown's announcement yesterday. A little better, lesser evil.
A little better than Gene Shaheen. The smaller weevil, yes.
Poor Bill.
Well, the problem with Ray Burton is he's been there since New Hampshire was founded, and nobody ever ran against him, really. Or did they? I don't know.
They tried. Actually,
did anybody ever try to replace him?
Yes, and the gentleman's name, hold on, because we actually supported him. We actually endorsed him. And
I don't remember. It's not my district, so.
Yeah, I know. Jerry Thibodeau.
Oh, that's right, yep.
The former Manchester city chair. Nice guy. I've talked with him several different times.
Jerry. Yeah.
Love his dogs. He's got Springer Spaniels. They're very friendly. Shy but friendly. But, yeah, he ran. He actually did a credible job just all of a sudden jumping into the race. I think he got maybe 30% of the vote, 40% of the vote in the primary, which when you think about it, he's new to the North Country, lives up north of Plymouth. He did a very good job. He would have been much better, I think, from a political spectrum standpoint than Ray Burton was, because Ray certainly had his problems. But, everybody in this state seems to think that he was a saint, except for me, for the most part.
Oh, no, he definitely wasn't. I mean, I'm just being nice because he died. I don't want to, that's unfortunate. I was even nice to Ted Kennedy when he died because, I was on NHTR with Ed and Jane, and he had passed away, and I said, condolences to the family because they may have loved him.
That's fine.
Yep. And Ed's like, not for me. And I'm like, okay, that's fine too, but I don't, people like to paint us as being these mean. I'm not mean-spirited. I wouldn't wish harm on anybody, even Ray Buckley. I don't want people to suffer, but when your politics make other people suffer, I have an issue with that.
Yeah, and I'll agree with what you said. Be nice to the families, and you should be. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to change my tune just because somebody died.
I mean, just because they're all, power-grabbing addicts doesn't mean, somebody you care about dies. All right, give him a couple days. Let him take it easy. So be nice to him.
But all in all, glad to see Joe Kennedy, and I believe that he is going to look at those contracts, and especially anything that Governor Hassan brings forward for review for, what's the word I'm looking for, nominations for anything, I'm hoping that he casts a very long, penetrating eye.
Yeah, well, the best part about it is, well, he can't stop it. He can certainly talk about it, which means we have somebody in there who's going to say, oh, by the way, look, this is what's going on.
Yep.
Public statements, we weren't going to get that from Ray, but we will get it from Joe.
Oh, no. He was more of a get along, especially if the money flowed north. That's about it.
So now with Joe, maybe we'll get some interviews, some material we can use on the Grok, get his face on here fairly often.
That would be nice.
Yep,
I mean, we've talked with Chris Sununu as well. I wouldn't mind having him come in.
Oh, sure.
We basically throw out open invites to everybody.
He's the only Sununu that donated to Joe's campaign, as far as I know.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, but there were at least two brothers, Sununu, that wrote to the newspaper and said, we don't want this Medicaid expansion.
That's true. That was true. But like you said, that might have been cover for Chris.
Well,
we don't know.
Yeah, and then one of those Sununu brothers actually got onto the school board somewhere.
Yeah.
So here we go. Second wave, or is this the third wave of the Sununu family dynasty?
It's also necessary that we point out that even though I haven't seen the final disclosures yet, the Democrat Party in New Hampshire dumped at least $100,000 into trying to elect Mike Cryans to this seat. Way outspent Kenny.
Well, and Kenny got way outspent by the establishment Republicans in the primary as well. When Chris Boothby was his primary opponent, all the establishment leaders lined up behind him. So Joe's a winner twice over, and congratulations to him.
And yes, by the way, since Ready for Hillary campaigners were in the state helping them, as soon as the quarterlies come out for the first part of the year, we're going to be looking at their statements to see who they gave money to, because they were here helping to elect Cryans, helping with Democrats, and we know they brought money with them. So we're going to see if we can track that down and report that as well. Because, we hear all this crying about out-of-state money and out-of-state influence, and the Ready for Hillary PAC already has millions and millions of dollars.
Are you talking about not a bossy Hillary?
Yeah, not a bossy Hillary. Well, we can maybe if Bill wants to talk about that, but it's his segment next, so we're going to do whatever
we talk about Hillary being bossy, but who was the one who stood up first and wanted to ban the use of the word bossy because it denigrates girls with leadership? Yes, the bossy one herself, Moo Chell. And in this case, I'm putting the emphasis on the moo, not on the mooch. Thank you.
That whole campaign was started by a Hillary supporter.
Sandberg.
So hey, that's the end of segment one. I hope you know what we talked about, because I didn't write it all down. Anyway.
That's what the video's for.
That's what the video and the audio is for. I'm Steve McDonald here with Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers, and Bill O'Connor, and we'll be right back to talk to Bill about his new PAC, SABRE PAC.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
The Center for Redress of Grievances, LLC, was established officially November of 2012 for the purpose of becoming a media outlet for those individuals who believe and have documentation that they've been unjustly treated by local, state, or federal government agencies. Our mission is to document their stories and to get them out to the public. By collecting and organizing this data, the Center for Redress will be able to better show the public and our legislature that there are issues with some of our government agencies that may be widespread and need to be addressed. Although we are not a nonprofit, we do provide all of our services at no cost to our clients. All of our services may include screening interviews, documentation gathering, audio-video of court hearings, and production of Speak Up, which is our television show. We're funded exclusively through sponsorship of Speak Up and our advertisers on our website. We hope to help those individuals who, with well-documented stories, need to be heard with credibility when the other agencies and media sources turn a deaf ear to them. You can go to our website at www.centerforredress.com and check us out. Anything you would like to donate is truly appreciated, and we will put it to good use.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. You're listening to Grok Talk.
Grok Talk.
I was told this morning that I had to have some kind of Irishy sounding music, so I threw this together. Happy St. Patrick's Day coming up. I have going to an event at Mike's where I will wear green, I promise, this evening. A little gathering. Because Marmar would give me the eye if I didn't have green on, I'm sure.
She would. Meanwhile, welcome back to Grok Talk, where we don't need to kiss the Blarney Stone.
That's right.
Yes, Grok Talk, a production of GraniteGrok.com, New Hampshire's leading conservative libertarian blog site.
That is. And as we always remind you, please check out cnht.org. Please visit us at GraniteGrok.com and see what we do, read what we do, see what CNHT does. Check out to see where Mike's right there, where Ed's going to be doing his next voter fraud workshop. They do all kinds of things. They don't just do voter fraud workshops, too. So there's a lot of things going on. You could help you with your local municipalities and all that good stuff. And, of course, we are on iTunes, and we are on TuneIn, and we are on Stitcher, and Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. So, and on YouTube and Ustream.
Correct.
So there's lots of different ways you can check out our program, and we'd like you to do that. But we're going to continue giving you a program by bringing in our guest for his actual segment. Bill O'Connor is here, and you're still chairman of the county, Strafford County Committee?
Yes.
Strafford County Republican Committee, and you started a PAC called SABRE PAC. And I went to your site, and I noticed there's a lot of stuff about Gene Shaheen there.
Yes.
But I know you said that one of the things that you guys were emphasizing was transparency and accountability.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, what else? Tell us about your PAC, what you're hoping to accomplish, and we'll just take from there, and we'll talk about squirrels. And
squirrels.
Who knows?
What we wanted to do, it started in the end of November, and we were sitting around going, how can we kick Gene Shaheen a little bit while she's down? Because that was
kick her in her naked undies.
Yeah, it was a really bad part of Obamacare sign-ups, and it was a disaster for them, and she didn't know what to do. So we said radio ads would be great. So we went to the county committee and said, to a meeting, there were like 35 people there, and said, hey, what do you think we spend some money on some radio ads against Gene Shaheen? And you know how it is with a committee. Before you know it, it wasn't going to work out. So, and then we found out that if you want to run ads against a senator or a federal
candidate,
you have to have a PAC. Yeah. And the county committee couldn't do it. And by the time you get 30 people trying to decide what the ad should say, it wasn't going to work out. So a few of us, Len Turcott, Margaret Culp, who's our vice chair, and myself started a PAC. And the three of us can work together and make decisions without a problem. So we raised a little bit of money and ran that first radio ad. Hopefully we'll be running some more soon. We've got to work on getting some more money.
Well, what we'll probably do is we had talked about running the ad for you. We'll just run it for nothing if you want to send it to me.
Okay.
Because we haven't really ironed out what our fee schedule is as we move into the campaign portion of the season and the year where we're going to be approached by actual campaigns to do some advertising. And we're going to charge them for that. Typically, if you're like a nonprofit or a local group, we're going to just play your ad for free because we want to help support you, especially if you are supporting us by coming on our show, talking about it, sharing links. And so that's just a kind of a tit-for-tat thing. But we didn't get the rate schedule ironed out yet. And so just email me the MP3 or whatever, and I'll throw it into the rotation.
Okay. Yeah, so the first ad was pretty cool. It was Len's wife did it, and Marga. And it ran for a week down in the Seacoast area. And one of the good things that's in Gene Shaheen's husband plays that radio station in his office.
Bill.
Which is why we picked that
That's
one.
awesome.
But,
Billy. Now, one of the things you mentioned, and this is the more I do this stuff, the more it really irritates me, because we do have SB 120 here in New Hampshire, Senate Bill 120, being pushed by 5 Republicans. That's going to further tighten down the screws on political speech. And if you go back and you look at your history around the time that the frame was putting together the Constitution, the First Amendment, the whole idea of free speech was specifically meant towards political free speech, the ability to speak up either by name or anonymously about or for or against the candidates or the issue of the day. And they wanted to make sure that anybody, the normal, ordinary person in the street, could do that. And yet you just said, well, I can't do that. I have to form this political committee, which meant that you had to go spend time, talent, and probably some money to say, how do I form this PAC, just so that a couple of me and my buddies can get together and tell the world what we think of this particular person. And I go, this is nuts.
The instruction guide for forming a federal PAC is like 250 pages.
Oh,
and then the application was massive. So luckily Len is he's not a lawyer, but he should be.
So let me ask in respect to that, Bill. A lot of people have formed PACs, and we've heard a lot of talk the last year about how the IRS is unfairly punishing or limiting conservative PACs by making it harder for them to become 501c3s or C4s. So my question to you is, why not just say the hell with it, right, fill no paperwork, do nothing, and simply pay tax on your income and not be burdened by any government regulations except for decency, which is the choice that the 10th Amendment Center takes, by the way. They do not file as any kind of nonprofit. They simply pay tax on income and feel free to say whatever the hell they want.
That would be a good idea. I don't know if we really didn't think of that. We just followed the rules. They said you got to have a PAC to go.
So the question is, have they already limited our speech to the point where you have to actually officially declare yourselves a PAC in order for 2 or more people to jointly publish their opinion?
It's just one person, and because if you spend above a certain amount, you have to do all of this rigmarole as well. It's what is going on at the federal level is also happening at the state level. In fact, it is New Hampshire State Senate Republicans Jeb Bradley, Sharon Carson, Bob Odell, and New Hampshire State Representative Sean Jasper, who have decided that with Senate Bill 120, they are the sponsors of it, they're going to tighten it down even more. They're going to make it more convoluted, more understandable for the regular person, and lowering, they're playing with the amounts of money that you can spend before you become ensnared. And it's how much speech can you have and not go over $500? And you pointed it out earlier, Steve, that then any political operative can go look at their opposition and go, I can snare you and tie you up in lawsuits.
Well, that's just it. And you also know you have to understand that the bureaucracy gets their hands on this. They get to decide what part of your engaging in speech included the cost. Is there an amount of money from the cost of your laptop and your whatever, this radio equipment? Where do you draw the line on what is a cost that then accumulates to the point where you're breaking the law? They get to decide that. They get to change it whenever they feel like it, pretty much. And so you get yourself in this trap where somebody like Bill wants to go out and engage in political speech. Then he went out and he got the 250 pages of rules. But most of us,
we wouldn't bother.
No, and I certainly wouldn't bother. I know that if I contribute in money or in kind to a politician's campaign, that I have to limit myself to the amounts specified, and I never quite understand how these $30,000 per plate dinners work as contributions, but I limit myself to the amount specified. On the other hand, if I want to put out a general issue advertisement by myself, I don't feel any burden to report that to anybody, and I wouldn't.
Yeah, well, they would. Now, this is a federal PAC, yes. SABRE PAC.
We also have a state PAC.
Does that mean that you had to go through the IRS to be a nonprofit?
Len did all this, but yeah, we had to go through the whole federal government. And he did a state PAC also, which was very easy. The Secretary of State's office helped him out on the phone whenever he wanted and all that. But the federal one was pretty convoluted, and we have to file monthly reports to them.
Send in blood samples.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, did you get the questionnaire from Lois Lerner?
I haven't seen that yet. I'm expecting it soon.
You have to file from Kenya in order to get Lois Lerner's signature on
That's
your
right.
approval.
Because Malik got his prorated back 2.5 years so that all the money he collected for his brother running for president would be illegal. So anyway, what else do you guys are focusing on Jeanne Shaheen now?
Yeah, right now, we probably could come up with 100 different ads.
Yeah.
That one that we did was meant to run in December. These things take longer than you think they're going to.
As you move forward, we come into a situation where you have 525 or 6 races going on in the state of New Hampshire. You have federal races. Is there anybody else congressional races you might want to look at? Is there a governor's race? Anything you guys talked about that yet?
We'd love to go after Carol Porter and Governor Hassan. Definitely. But we got to.
Well, you got to have money.
Yeah, we got to have money, but I guess whoever says the dumbest thing last will be the one going out there.
Well, yeah.
Sort of like us.
It's a target-rich environment, so it really gives you a lot of things a lot of things to shoot for. So, so you've got your PAC. That's the one thing, and then how are things going on the county side with the party and whatever?
They're going great over there. Our last meeting, we came out with a resolution. I don't know if you guys saw it or not. Against,
I bet you I can guess.
Against Obamacare.
Well,
expanded Medicaid.
Yep.
Our meeting's been going well. We've got 35, 40 people to a meeting now, and we have two great senators in our county, Sam Cataldo and John Reagan, and they come to almost all the meetings.
Good.
So we had a big discussion about expanded Medicaid. John Reagan gave us one side of the issue. Sam Cataldo gave us the other side, and it was very good. It was a good discussion. Went on for about 20 minutes. We came out with a resolution against it, and the two senators brought it to the Senate president and said, "Here's what they came up with," and obviously it didn't work. But
both of them voted against it.
They both did.
Yes. And that's important because I know John was kind of thinking he would support the idea based on Bradley's presumption that they had to pass something or else they'd get stuck with something worse.
Right.
Which, of course, is an entire other debate we won't get into because then it'll distract from you.
So, and we have we're trying to do an event with the county monthly until election time. So this month, the 27th, Betsy McCoy is coming.
She's great.
She carries the.
Oh, we love her.
She comes here all the time.
Oh, does she?
Yep. We almost got her in studio. She got as close as a rest stop in Massachusetts.
The IRS building.
The IRS building. Yes, that's a rest stop.
So she's coming on the 27th, and actually Senator Bob Smith and Frank Inter are going to be. So we'll have all three. We get a little bit from every.
So any chance you'd get over to that, Skip?
What day again?
The 27th. It's a Thursday night, 6 o'clock.
That's tough, isn't it?
That's tough time-wise.
Yeah, I have to go support my local Hollis Republicans at their meeting on the 27th because the night before we're hosting Scott Brown at our place. And you might say, why on earth is a Grokster hosting Scott Brown? And the answer is because we want to give them a chance to air their positions and try to earn the trust of the people. I don't think they're going to get very far, but they need to have that opportunity. He's going to try and sell New Hampshire. Let's hear how he tries to sell New Hampshire.
Well, I want to see how he's going to protect New Hampshire from the federal government, and his voting record thus far hasn't been stellar.
Hasn't been great. We're going to take 60 seconds as soon as I press a couple of buttons to make sure that your 60 seconds is as enjoyable as possible. We'll be right back.
Molly Shaheen, Senator Jeanne Shaheen's daughter, has a very expensive LA apartment where she lives and works, but for some strange reason, she voted here in New Hampshire. Elena Biden, niece to the man a heartbeat away from the presidency. Well, she never lived in New Hampshire at all, and she voted here and went back home. New Hampshire Democrat Emma Roos invited her adult children to leave their homes in Virginia, Washington, D.C. to claim they lived in New Hampshire to vote last November, and they went back home. New Hampshire State Senator Martha Fuller Clark, vice chair of the New Hampshire Democrat State Party, she had a whole bunch of people who aren't from here living in her home, including a paid congressional staffer and an ACLU lawyer from Arkansas. They don't live here. They all claim to be claiming to live here just so they can vote here and then leave. That's not all the Democrats who showed up to steal your votes and then leave, but that'll get you started. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Rock Talk.
During the break, we were talking about the sword of Barry-Cleese. Or is it Obama-Cleese?
I'm calling it Barry-Cleese, and I'll be manufacturing a sword to put in a graphic of some sort.
Just to give you a heads up, it was just sort of a very brief discussion about how, since the president does not actually have the power to waive the actual law, anybody who decides to not follow it can retroactively be punished for refusing to or failing to follow the law that the president said you didn't have to follow because he can't do that.
Exactly, and of course the IRS will then come after you for your shared responsibility contribution, because it's not a penalty that was illegal. It's not called a tax anymore because that's offensive. It's now a shared responsibility contribution.
Contribution or payment?
Payment, maybe.
Yeah.
But you must contribute. It's not voluntary.
Yeah, just like my former New Hampshire State Senator, Kathy Skimbotti, said, well, in order to be able to help people, we all have to be in. Progressives say you don't have the choice not to be included because we will include you whether you like it or not. And that must be something that you talk about quite often at your meetings. Bill O'Connor, who's here to talk about SABRE PAC and is also the chair of the Strafford County Republicans.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the battle space over there in Strafford County.
Well, talking about the sword, that reminds me of why we named it SABRE PAC. That was the whole idea, was that I think it was Jeff Chittister said at one of our meetings, he said Republicans really have to stop hiding behind a shield and they have to get out the sword. So we have a business card with a sword and there's no shield.
I put your logo up when we first heard about it.
Yeah, so he has no shield. So
well, that's even better.
He doesn't need the shield because he's on offensive, like our Republicans in Washington aren't.
Exactly.
Except for maybe Ted Cruz and Mike Lee and Rand Paul.
Yeah.
So you guys have to help hustle up candidates and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Or do you leave that to the towns? You guys do it all together?
No, Laura Jones is heading up that effort in the county. She's like a pit bull. She gets a hold of somebody and she won't let them go.
Yeah.
But it's really tough. We got 37 House seats, 3 Senate seats, and then, of course, all the county ones. And it's hard to get somebody to commit to that kind of time commitment. And I've found most of the people we recruit, once they get in, they enjoy it, but they're pretty hesitant to sign the name.
I mean, if I financially could swing it, I'd be running in a heartbeat, either for the House or for the Senate. But unfortunately, I look at how our citizen politicians work. They get basically a per diem and $100 a year. And I really do believe that's the way to do it, but it does eliminate a lot of folks like me who are working stiffs that have to be able to do, the work to be able to keep the household running. And I'll tell you, I've been asked a number of times to run, and each and every time I sorrowfully, and I chose that word carefully, sorrowfully have to say, I can't do it, because I'll tell you, I would have so much fun.
The Democrats have almost gotten to a point where the people on EBT can run.
Well, we actually exposed somebody who was on welfare in the state. She was an amnesty person, and I'd have to go way back to remember the name. But we just kept on. I kept on reporting on it, and her name kind of got up there, and all of a sudden she realized I'm screwed, and she quit. She because a lot of people started to say, why should somebody on welfare be there to advocate for more welfare? It just didn't sit too well, and
It's one step back to the reality where there's lots of people who aren't on welfare advocating for welfare. I mean, really, that's a good point, though. I mean, it is a conflict of interest.
Yes.
And that's just another one of those great examples. I mean, we've had reps elected from Massachusetts. We've had college students from Vermont run for public office and get elected. The electoral system in this state is just embarrassing.
Well, that's because, once again, we see laws not being enforced. When it comes to private companies, they can do whatever they want. They have a profit motive to keep them in line when it really comes down to it. But when it comes to government, process matters. To be open and transparent, and you probably get this all the time, you have to have processes that everybody can understand. They're open to everybody. Otherwise, they can't be trusted. And as I've been writing about on Grok for a while, consistency breeds trust. Trust breeds votes. And you must hear stories like you can't believe coming from all of your reps and your senators to say, I can't believe that this goes on. But when we look at our elected, our appointed officials, like the attorney generals, the police and all that, they're not enforcing the laws. And then they wonder why people distrust government.
Yeah, her name just flew out of my head, but we had a rep in the town of Rochester, city of Rochester, lived in one ward and ran in another ward and used her mother-in-law's address, and they had proof. The Rochester City Committee was following it. She voted in a ward that she didn't live in the primary, and they brought all the proof to the Secretary of State, Attorney General, and that, as soon as Terry Norelli became Speaker, that whole investigation just died.
So she's still in the House?
Yes, and
from the
I'm not
wrong
sure.
ward.
She said she was going to move to the correct ward, and I haven't followed up on whether she actually did move or not.
Okay, so you raise two most excellent points there. Actually, one of them is the Democrats' stated belief that as long as you show the intent of moving somewhere, it's okay to vote there and pretend you're from there, which is what they do when they vote here. But the other thing is, try this thought experiment. So it's okay for a Democrat to believe that they belong to a particular district so they can vote there and run for office there. Have you ever tried telling the local school or the better school in the next town that you believe you live in that next town, or you intend to live there sometime maybe in the next 5 years, so you want your kid to go there right now? And see how many progressives will try and stop you?
Yeah.
I think you might get charged for that.
You might, especially if you're not a Democrat. We got a couple minutes left, and since you've been a commercial airline pilot for 23 years?
Yes.
Thoughts about the missing Malaysian plane?
I get to be an aviation expert?
Yes.
You know, all those guys talk out of there.
Yeah.
So I have to turn around. Boeing makes the best this isn't an ad for Boeing. They make the best airliners in the world. There's nothing even close. The 777 is the best Boeing that they've ever made. If it was mechanical, it would also have to include some kind of gross negligence by either the crew or maintenance or something like that. So, I mean, I can't even picture a scenario where that would happen, where the plane would just disappear without any kind of signals or wreckage.
So Dr. Evil did steal it. Okay.
I'm going to guess it's going to involve some Muslim men between the ages of 18 and 35.
It's probably right.
Or like what happened with Egypt Air suicide.
Yes. It's still a Muslim man between 18 and 35.
Yes, true.
Oh,
yes.
well,
but
yeah, that was a different reason.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was somewhere in the ocean because it's so hard to find. You know, it's a lot harder to find in the ocean.
Especially if there isn't any flotsam, if there isn't anything on the surface that people can see, no oil slicks, no debris, no nothing. If it just goes underwater and breaks up underwater, I mean, I don't know that I'm sure it would break up on the way in. But
so that was the kind of theory that was on the go early on, that, you know, either it blew up due to men of a certain persuasion between certain ages, or it suffered some kind of catastrophic failure. But if that was the case, they'd have found debris right where it disappeared off a radar. Now, of course, they were saying disappeared off a radar. they didn't mean that from an engineer's point of view. What they meant is it disappeared off of the transponder response because active or secondary radar uses a query response, which means the signal is transmitted in both directions and it has a very long range, whereas regular radar that bounces off of stuff like the police officer uses or detection of planes that don't want to be detected works off a reflection, which is why stealth aircraft work. So it's not a reflection. It was too far away for a reflection. This was active radar, meaning it was answering the requests, and it stopped answering the requests, which means either it blew up or it was turned off. They're now coming around to the theory that it was turned off. There's hints that it turned before it disappeared. And the bit that they kept hidden until I think it was yesterday, there were a couple of rumors Thursday, is that the plane has a telemetry transmitter. As Bill says, not only are they the best airplanes in the world, they actually keep phoning home so that you know what's going wrong. You know if something's wearing out. And so the telemetry transmitter stayed on for, about another 4 hours afterwards?
Yeah, now they're saying, I heard this morning they're saying it could have flown for another 7 after that. So,
well, which makes sense. It was
a
scheduled,
lot of places.
Yeah, it was scheduled for a 5 or 6 hour flight, and it had spare fuel, and it wasn't completely full. So, yeah, all of that's possible. So now we're looking at it could be as far away as the sort of northern Pakistan borders with Afghanistan. So now the question is, why would they want to steal a plane full of mostly Chinese people and fly it that far away into what would appear to be Islamic territory, although Islamic territory could be anywhere from Malaysia, which was quite close, or actually they're in Malaysia, sorry, Indonesia, which was quite close, all the way up to Pakistan and Afghanistan. And, how is it that with the satellite assets that we have no record of an airliner flying in those kinds of places?
Who says that we haven't?
But it would be hard to, also, if you think about all the electronic equipment on the plane and that the passengers have with them, I would think it'd be hard to hide all that if the plane was still above the water. Is my thoughts.
So. All right, we got 30 seconds. How do they contact you or your PAC or
it's stuff? Well, actually, you can have my email. It's absoconnor@gmail.com, or they could call me 603-944-6015.
And it's sabrepac.org.
Sabrepac.org. That's the actual name of the PAC.
Sabrepac.org, right there.
Spelled the American way, folks. SABER.
All right, real quick, 30 seconds left before I actually go to break. Your scariest flight incident that you could share. It doesn't have one, never happened.
Main and standby pitch trim failure on takeoff. It was a harrowing experience.
Okay.
But we made it back to the airport after 15, 20 minutes and landed without incident.
Yay!
Well done, Sully.
All right, this is Grok Talk. We'll be right back with Scott Wilson from the CCDL. And Bill, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Turned off or tuned out recently? Can't believe what you see or hear these days? We have the show for you. It's all about taking control through understanding what's happening. Dr. Julianne Cooper, founder and president of Liberty Harbor Academy, hosts Carpe Diem, New Hampshire's first culture and education show on WSMN Radio 1590. Longtime history professor, entrepreneur, and cultural commentator Dr. Cooper will discuss what's happening in and to American culture and education. From pop culture to higher education, Dr. Cooper will help you make sense of the world. So, seize the day. Listen to Carpe Diem with Dr. Cooper every Tuesday from 11 to noon.
Steve McDonald here. Molly Shaheen, Senator Jean Shaheen's daughter, has a very expensive LA apartment where she lives and works, but for some strange reason, she voted here in New Hampshire. Elena Biden, niece to the man a heartbeat away from the presidency. Well, she never lived in New Hampshire at all, and she voted here and went back home. Hampshire Democrat Emma Roos invited her adult children to leave their homes in Virginia, Washington, D.C. to claim they lived in New Hampshire to vote last November, and they went back home. New Hampshire State Senator Martha Fuller Clark, vice chair of the New Hampshire Democrat State Party, she had a whole bunch of people who aren't from here living in her home, including a paid congressional staffer and an ACLU lawyer from Arkansas. They don't live here. They all claim to be claiming to live here just so they can vote here and then leave. That's not all the Democrats who showed up to steal your votes and then leave, but that'll get you started. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Grok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Grok Talk is 2 hours of news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com. But don't limit yourself to Grok Talk. Check us out at GraniteGrok.com. Follow us on Facebook or Twitter by searching Granite Grok.
Rock Talk. Rock Talk.
Here we are with our seasonally relevant music here at Grok Talk. My name is Steve McDonald. I'm here with Skip Murphy and Mike Rogers. We'd like to welcome you to the program. Live streaming every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. at GraniteGrok.com. Podcasted and videocasted all over the place. Go to GraniteGrok.com to see where and how you can listen to this and past programs. And while you're there, check out GraniteGrok.com, make a donation, and help us keep this program on the air so that you can listen to great guests like our next guest, who is Scott Wilson, president of the Connecticut Citizens Defense League. I'll let him tell you who the Connecticut Citizens Defense League is instead of me just talking. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Great. So tell us what the Connecticut Citizens Defense League is for our listeners who aren't bright enough to already know.
Well, we're a grassroots volunteer organization, Second Amendment organization that started in February of 2009 down here in Connecticut after concerned individuals, and myself included, were looking around at the landscape of how gun bills were being passed every year and a new law here, a new law there, and essentially nothing was being done to try to slow it down, or very little was being done to try to slow down the gun control tide. And so we got together a bunch of individuals, and we started the organization. And from 10 founding members today, we have close to 13,000 members now across the state.
Oh, that's outstanding.
Wow. That's enormous. That's almost NRA-sized membership for the size of Connecticut.
And now you're... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, we are a small state, yes.
All right, now the big news that you guys have running, you have a lawsuit in process, correct?
That's correct. We lost at the Connecticut federal district level this past earlier this year, and now we have the appeal framework has been filed, and we're waiting for the attorneys, the team of attorneys, Stephen Halbrook and Brian Stapleton from Goldberg and Segalia down in New York. They're crafting up the actual language of the appeal, and it should be submitted, I would say, before May or by May.
Okay, and this is Shue versus Malloy, is that right?
Shue v. Malloy, that's
Shue
correct.
Malloy,
and
okay,
it will be Second Circuit Court of Appeals.
And we've had Stephen Halbrook on the show, which is awesome.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So I was going to say, so what is the actual plaint in Shue v. Malloy? I mean, I know you've got oppressive gun restrictions in Connecticut recently enacted. Is that plaint directly related to the infringement of his rights by said law?
Yes. Well, the complaint is drafted on essentially the Second Amendment challenge, and then there's equal protection because there are certain law enforcement and military personnel in Connecticut now that have rights above and beyond the ordinary citizen. And the third point that the lawsuit alleges is that, and of course I'm trying to use layman's terms here, is that essentially the law is so overt or complicated to the point where it's just not understandable to the average person. There's still attorneys that are questioning some of the language in what it actually means today, as far as can you do this or can't you do that, or can you own this or can't you own that.
Yeah, this is Skip Murphy, and I want to say thanks for coming on the show as well. And that seems to be a common complaint, not so much just for the gun laws, but in almost everyday life. There is that common conventional wisdom that says every single day you break at least 4 or 5 federal laws, mostly because you don't know that it actually exists. and especially when the Federal Register is 73,000 pages long nowadays. But getting back to your situation in Connecticut, a lot of us here in New Hampshire, the live free or die state, we are certainly under attack by progressive gun grabbers as well. They're trying to backdoor gun control. They haven't gotten as far as your progressives on both sides of the aisle, trying to do the right thing and not solving the problem at all. We just have to do something. We have to appear to be doing something. And yet it's made, we've written about this on Granic Rock. It's like all of a sudden 250 to 350,000 of your fellow Connecticutans are now felons because they are, and I look at this from the philosophical idea of you govern by the consent of the governed, and now the governed are withdrawing their consent.
Sure. And to just touch on your early point in your statement right now, the reason that obviously that they were so successful here in implementing this extreme gun control on us this past year was certainly because of Sandy Hook. And a point that I would like to make is that every state or any state could possibly be one type of Sandy Hook tragedy away from something like this happening to their state. And now we've got citizens who are law-abiding that own firearms, and it's not just because of the guns down here where it's so miserable to live. It's all the laws that, it's all the high taxes, it's all the things that are making Connecticut a very unpopular state. So we've got people leaving in droves here. It's sort of a mass exodus right now. And I think that the gun control, when the law kicked into effect, the registration component kicked into effect, it was like the last straw on the backs of the people. And now we've got two of our great members actually escaped up to New Hampshire, and they've been involved in your legislative session up there, fighting the gun bills that were proposed there this year.
Well, we'd welcome anybody from Connecticut who wants to come and help us defend gun laws. But let's if anybody wants to call in, I keep forgetting to say this because we have another phone line now. You can call us at 603-715-9689 to join this debate. Now, you've had gun companies are leaving too. Is that right? I'm trying to remember which state.
Yeah, well, right. PTR Industries left Connecticut, and there's always talk about the possibility of Stag Arms leaving. I don't know if they're waiting for the ultimate outcome of the litigation that we have filed right now, but they've been kind of quiet as to whether or not they're leaving now. Colt Firearms threatens to leave every now and then. I know New York's certainly, they're in a similar situation with us, and we share the same team of attorneys for our litigation that they're sharing out there to try to, overturn the SAFE Act. So, I know that they're losing companies up there. It's just why stay in an environment where it's unfriendly to business and it's anti-gun when the claims are, by the governor of this state and New York that we don't want these killing machines on our streets but you can stay here and manufacture them and then ship them to other states. It's hypocritical on their part, among other things.
Sure, but when it comes to Democrats, obtaining taxes is never considered to be hypocritical. It's just what they do. Well, the point I was going to make, this is Mike, by the way, Scott, and I'm so grateful to have you on, is your southwest corner is, of course, the limousine liberals from New York, so they can afford to live there, they can afford their bodyguards, and they don't care. The center of the state, especially Hartford and its environs, has got a lot of poor people that are going to live off the state, and they don't care. And they probably don't care to tell you whether they've got a gun in their back pocket either. And then there's the rest of you that are hardworking, living in various suburbs and small towns across the state that like your outdoor pursuits, your marksmanship, and yes, there's countryside in Connecticut folks. They like their hunting. And now you folks are basically under siege. And, we'd love to have you in New Hampshire. Tell your friends about the Free State Project.
I will. Right now, a number of us who have, even some of the executives of our organization, the hardworking people that actually help and run CCDL and maintain its presence in the state every day, they're dying to get out of here. And I think for now, anyways, a lot of us are just kind of trying to make our stand because I believe that if everybody leaves to some sort of safe harbor somewhere in some of the safe states, then of course, the Senate will become under extreme control of those that to have designs of gun control on everybody, and it's just a matter of time before federal legislation or mandates from the president pop up to infringe on the rights of the people in Texas and in Florida and some of the traditionally good states. So it's right now we make Connecticut the battleground for gun rights, at least here on the East Coast, anyways. And
we applaud you for it, Skip.
Yeah, I want to go back to something I brought up just a little bit ago: the consent of the governed. Certainly, we are all bloggers, primarily, not just podcasters, and we are watching you folks very carefully. And we're starting to see some of your citizens starting to get a little in their government's face, saying, "Go ahead, come and take the Molon Labe." And it really seems to be paralyzing some of the politicians and perhaps some of the law enforcement to say, man, have we got a real big problem on our hands because they're not following the law and there's so many of them. What are we going to do? And I'm just curious, since you're right there on the ground, are you hearing this tension? Which way does it seem to be going at this point?
Well, right, and there's a lot of angry gun owners, some of whom didn't register. And here's the kind of the crux is there's many that didn't register, there's many that did register, and then there's a certain amount of a segment of that, the population of the gun owners that are not registered right now that kind of fall in between the cracks for the simple fact that they didn't know about the law. They didn't know that the types of firearms they own are now on a banned list, and or the magazines that need to be declared. It's a de facto kind of registration because there's no serial numbers, so they want you to declare the amount of magazines that contain over or can contain over 10 rounds. So there's certainly a number in there that falls in between that are clueless, despite the efforts of our organization and despite the efforts of, as weak and pathetic as they were, by the state of Connecticut to educate and to enlighten them that now we have these laws, and you better check what's in your safe and then compare it to this list and see if you're on this list. So the state right now has said, the latest reports from the state and the spokesman for the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection down here has officially gone on record stating they're not going to be going door to door. So that's kind of backed up the state a little bit. And I think that if they catch somebody with a firearm that's on the banned list, that they might be made an example of, depending, of course, who the officer is that happens to run across somebody with one of these firearms. So we really don't know. This is sort of new ground for us here in Connecticut, and we certainly want the police to understand and know, the state police, that behind every door where somebody might have one of these firearms, there's also a family possibly, with children, and they really need to be careful and think about the consequences that could really further cause a cataclysmic series of events.
Well, sure. I worry very much that they try bust down a few doors, and if they think they can pick people off individually, the next thing they know, they'll have people banding together for self-protection, and then it'll really get nasty. And obviously none of us wanted to get to that. So by and large, the police chiefs are saying, we're going to follow the Constitution. This law is not enforceable. You had one bad apple cop who went on Facebook and said, basically, I can't wait to come and stomp your door down and take your stuff. But the point I really wanted to get to, you talked about people between the cracks because they still, in spite of everybody's best efforts, don't know this law exists. I think the people that fell between the cracks that we should really worry about, and also that really expose the intent of the law, are the ones who registered, but for either reasons of postmarking or because they learned a little late, they registered at the last minute. And the government basically said, we don't accept your registration. You are now in violation. You have to destroy your weapons. That, I think, gets to the crux of the matter of what their intent is, removal and destruction.
Yeah, I agree. And, they did extend the deadline from January 1st out to January 4th, provided that the registrations were notarized prior to January 1st. So if those were done and sent in, then those people were given a very brief grace period. And the ones that came after that, either the postmark was late or the notary stamp was later than January 1st. And those people are being sent the letters to say, you got to remove your weapons, destroy them, turn them over to us, or some, the four choices that they outlined in the letter that was drafted by the state police. So obviously, I don't think anybody worth their salt are going to turn them into the police. Why give them any kind of satisfaction? You've got your options to render them inoperable or get them out of state. And I think I'm concerned about those people because who knows? I mean, right now it seems like they're kind of back down. There's people from other states that are being very supportive of Connecticut and are saying if there's trouble here, they're going to come here. And of course, we don't want World War III going on in our borders, but you keep poking the cage of people, and at some point, the people who are being despotised will have had enough.
All right, we're going to take a 60-second break. We're talking to Scott Wilson, president of the Connecticut Citizens Defense League, and we'll be right back with Scott in about a minute.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Grok Talk.
All right, we're back with Scott Wilson, president of the Connecticut Citizens Defense League. If you want to call in and talk with us and Scott, you can call us at 603-715-9689. Skip brought Ed Larkin in so that we know when you call, the flasher will go off if you ring us.
Okay, now you have to give the backstory why we're calling the flasher the strobe light Ed Larkin.
Search Ed Larkin on GraniteRock.com and you'll find out. I'll give you the quick story. He exposed himself to a young woman and her daughter at the Market Basket parking lot in Milford. The union protected him, and he got paid a large sum of money to not work for 3 or 5 years, and now he's back working at UNH as a German professor without any consequences. So anyway, that's completely off the beaten track. We're back with Scott to talk about gun rights, and somebody had a question. I forget who was next.
Well, I can ask a question.
Please do.
Now it escapes me.
ADD,
off to another world.
I got a quick one. Okay, so Scott, obviously nobody's suggesting that you desert Connecticut in droves. I think stand and fight is the right attitude, or at least stand and refuse to be cowed. After all, this legislation is illegal on its face. It is ex post facto legislation, and furthermore, it demonizes and punishes one particular group, which also makes it a bill of attainder, and your lawyers should have a field day with that. But we do want to attract the right people to New Hampshire because we have our own problem with the invasions from Massachusetts and nearby socialist states that we are trying to attract libertarians and conservatives here to help uphold our Constitution and the federal Constitution. So always welcome. But, I think this is a case of stand and make your point.
Well, isn't it, if I could just interject right here, isn't it amazing how some of these people, they come from these states or these areas that have been destroyed by their own hands, and they leave a mess behind, and they're like locusts, and they go on to the next place and get a taste of liberty and freedom. And the first thing they do when they get there is they try to change it into what they just left. It's ludicrous, and it's baffling, and it's just I don't understand it, but that's the pattern that seems to repeat. And as you are welcoming everybody up to New Hampshire that has the principles that you subscribe to, at this time I just want to take a moment of liberty, even though I'm calling from Connecticut, to invite everybody on April 5th to our rally at the state capitol down here in Connecticut, in Hartford. It's going to be from noon to 3, and the chatter that's out there and the buzz that's out there is we're going to be having a lot of support from a lot of people in neighboring states and beyond coming to this rally to stand with Connecticut. So we've got in the making right now a tremendous lineup of some speakers.
Well, there's already somebody out on the Seacoast, Jack Kimball, who is arranging for a number of buses to be leaving from the Pease Trade Port to basically bring a lot of us from New Hampshire down to that rally. So, yeah,
Wonderful.
A lot of people are hearing about it, and they want to do something about it.
We're going to set up a Grok table there, Skip?
We'll see. If I can get Wi-Fi, we may do that. We don't just podcast from here, Scott. We have a traveling kit that we will live stream and basically go do interviews, the whole bit. So if I can get the time off and I can get power and I can get Wi-Fi or MiFi, we just might bring the whole Granite Grok stuff down.
I got the MiFi and the antenna. If they've got reasonable 4G coverage, we're a game. We're live.
Yeah, they've got excellent 4G coverage there, and we invite you guys down. I look forward to shaking your hands if you come on down here.
Well,
that's fine.
We'd love to do that.
One other question. How, in order to support you, can we bring legally a suitably legal piece of firepower with us, or is that impossible because of crossing Massachusetts?
Or New York?
Well, no. I mean, you've got the Firearms Owners Protection Act protecting you, provided that your firearm is legal from the start and the destination. You may come to Connecticut. If you don't have a Connecticut pistol permit, you can't carry a firearm in the state, a handgun rather, but you're welcome to bring a firearm down here, a long arm, that is not banned. That's not something that's on the banned list, and it's so-called assault weapon, as they're now referred to, or a magazine that contains over 10 rounds.
I have a bolt-action Mosin.
You're fine.
I could bring that.
Is a basic shotgun permitted?
A basic shotgun is permitted if it's got a detachable magazine and it contains over 10 rounds. Don't bring it. If it's a semi-automatic or pump-action shotgun, you may bring it down. Absolutely.
What if it has a pistol grip and an adjustable stock?
If it's a semi-automatic, you may not, because now we're talking two so-called evil features.
No, this would be an adjustable stock and a pistol grip, but it's a pump action.
Pump action's fine. You may bring the pistol grip with the adjustable stock.
Okay. Well, good. We can bring the Grok Armory down with us.
Now that we know what we can bring with us, we'll call Rick. Rick has an armory at his house.
And Rick has a federal permit. If we can get Rick to come down, we can put our guns in his vehicle for transport across Massachusetts.
Yes, we can. He is a federally licensed firearms dealer. So we will find a way.
We have a gun club president on staff.
It's funny, but years ago I actually had one of the New Hampshire permits, and when they went from $20 for non-residents to $100, from the time I had my permit and it expired, I had to forego renewing the New Hampshire permit because I just thought it was just too much of a price jump.
That is too much.
Yeah, and a lot of us kind of looked askance at that, and like we said, we're seeing the same things up here as we see a lot of transplants. I'm accumulating a page of strictly what Democrats and progressives are saying about life in general, the general purpose of government, and that's a big deal with me. I tend to be on the philosophical side, and that's why I keep bringing up with you, Scott, the consent of the governed. Are we getting to the point in Connecticut where we saw what happened during Prohibition? Everybody thought it was a great idea, and then all of a sudden, the consent of the governed was basically repealed Prohibition. We saw some of the early policies of Obama so tightly pushing the diesel cylinder of politics that one spark ended up being the Tea Party, where again you saw the consent of the governed being withdrawn. I know. Hurry up, Steve.
We're not interviewing you.
Yes. Do you see that the same thing with the guns happening in other areas of Connecticut where people are just starting to say, we've had enough? Has this gun issue become the tipping point for a whole bunch of issues?
It has, and a lot of people who have other issues outside of firearms in Connecticut there's a tremendous amount of people that are kind of rallying around us and joining our membership, and right now we're in an election cycle down here, and a lot of the candidates are vetted through our organization, and we're having candidate forums, and a lot of times the candidates come and they do, we request that they share their views on the Second Amendment, but sometimes they expound into other areas as well. So it's an opportunity for people to be able to come and hear and meet some of these candidates. And so, yeah, there's a lot of people that are using the what happened with the firearms legislation down here. They're using them as a launching pad to deal with and address some of their other concerns as well. It's and we are all sort of bonding together. Those of us who are like-minded in our beliefs of either libertarianism partly or conservatism. Certainly, the collectivism is not something that many of us aspire to want to continue to pursue in our lives, and we're trying to thwart those types of trends right now, and try to get things back on track in some capacity towards moving towards freedom and liberty, which we so desperately need and we have so gotten away from here in my lifetime.
I know we're getting close to the end of this segment, but are you're perceived as being a deeply blue state. Are you seeing enough movement of people saying, I can't take this anymore, to perhaps make it at least a purple state, if not at least a light shade of red?
Time will tell. I mean, I know during the last election cycle and then the cycle before that, I had some hopes, and of course those hopes were at that time anyways crushed. But yet, again, hope is renewed that we can do something and move something in the right direction. If we can get this governor out of office this year, that will be a huge step. And right now, that's our mission here in Connecticut, is to get the governor out, to try to at least potentially maybe make some gains and possibly gain the Senate. And if we can do that, maybe pick up some House gains, we'll be moving in that direction. But at the end of the day, it boils down to the education of our fellow men, the people that pull the levers for those people that continue to hurt our rights year after year after year. We need to educate those people and teach them the principles of the Constitution, the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment. People need to really know about their rights, and not just show up and pull a lever because some elected official is going to give them what they want. They're going to give them money or food or shelter and protect them that way as long as they can secure a vote. Because essentially, that's giving your vote away. That's giving your vote away. You're selling your vote, and the state and the people that are in charge in the state are certainly happy to buy your vote.
Scott, we're almost out of time. Can you give us some contact information? And I hear Skip's phone ringing.
Okay,
about
sure.
how people can reach you, how they can join, and
yes, absolutely. Our website, ccdl.us. Membership is free. We have links on there if you want to donate a few dollars to our litigation fund. We also have a wonderful blog that you can subscribe to and get the latest and greatest updates. You will mail out updates via to our massive membership, but we also send out a lot of great blog updates as well. And again, on our rally, April 5th, we look forward to seeing people from across the region come to Connecticut and stand with us on this particular day, because it'll be 1 year and 1 day since the governor signed the Gun Control Act into law.
All right, well, Scott Wilson, president of CCDL, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to talk to us at GraniteGrok.com and on Grok Talk. Hopefully we'll be down to see you at the event, but I think either way we will be in touch and coordinating and sharing some news and information to help promote your effort down there.
Excellent, guys. Thank you very much.
All right, Scott, thanks. You have a great weekend. All right, that's it. I'm Steve. I'm here with Skip Murphy and Mike Rogers, and we should have some new guests in a minute. We'll see you soon.
Steve McDonald here. You ever notice how Democrats like to create problems so they can then claim to solve them? Take Medicaid expansion, for example. Even if the federal government keeps its promise to New Hampshire to pay for most of it, it'll still cost New Hampshire taxpayers tens of millions of dollars more to provide inferior care and coverage to people who, for the most part, would never have needed it if Democrats hadn't reformed health care in the first place. That's right, that real expensive reform that doesn't care if it's only affordable if you act like you don't need insurance. Well, its number one claim to fame at this point is how many more people it forced onto Medicaid. And that's only because Obamacare kicks tens of millions of people off the plan they liked and were told they could keep but couldn't. So Medicaid expansion was always part of Obamacare for a reason. Democrats knew all along that the Affordable Care Act was unaffordable and they'd need to make Medicaid bigger and more expensive. So when people got their plan kicked to the health care curb, they could still sign up for something, even if it was something as crappy as Medicaid. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Grok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Earl Hall from The Earl Hall Show, and you're listening to Grok Talk. Grok Talk.
Welcome back to Grok Talk. We are New Hampshire's conservative podcast, New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site,
and the safest podcast in New Hampshire.
We are armed and ready, ladies and gentlemen, and we'd like to welcome you back. Thank you very much to Scott Wilson from the CCDL. He's the president of the Connecticut Citizens Defense League down there. If you are within earshot or you hear this on podcast, April 5th, they're having a huge event. We will post links and information, and you can learn more about that at their website. And, of course, don't forget to check out cnht.org and granitegrok.com. Donate and support this program and all the work that your grassroots organizations do.
Yes. As we have just realized, we need to buy some more equipment.
We need more equipment, so please, please, please give us some money. Thank you. That's our. It's not PBS. We're not going to talk about it every 5 minutes, but every segment we bring it up. And talking about segments, we're into a new one. And this is probably a first for us. We have some dedicated readers and commenters who have provided tons of beneficial information and input to our blog, and they ran into Skip and the folks when we were at a rally.
The 223 rally.
Right, and everybody said hi, shook hands, and we invited them on, and they're here, and we'd like to welcome Alan and Radical Moderate to our podcast. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
And we want to say each and every day that you come and give us yet another hit, we appreciate it, but we especially appreciate your comments. And, you know, when I met up with you guys at the 223 rally, I really said we need to do a segment so we know what we do at Granite Grok because we do it every single day. But I'm kind of curious as to how did you find Granite Grok and why do you keep coming back to Granite Grok? And what do you think of us, bunch of ADD bloggers?
Well, I honestly, I can't remember how I found Granite Grok. I think I was probably just searching for anything in New Hampshire, and it just, you know, started reading it, and okay, here's someplace that I can, you know, even if I don't agree with everything, at least I can put my 2 cents out there, and people can, you know, either agree with me or not. You know, a lot of places out there where they do a lot of censorship and stuff, and you know, if you don't agree with the poster, they completely get rid of you and ban you and all that stuff.
That's not us. We will X out naughty words, but we'll leave the content. And
yeah. Oh, I always keep it clean.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you very much. We don't have too many people who, you know, take the language thing too far.
Once in a while, you know, I get all the comments, so that's one reason why you two are here, because you guys are commenting constantly, and we appreciate that. But yeah, you folks never seem to violate my rule number 1. Adult themes, but kid-friendly. There have been some, as Steve has said, that I do have to edit, or I banned, I think, 1 person, period. And then some comments will go up late because you put a link in there. I have to approve the link before it goes up. But, you know, how about you, Rad? How did you find us?
Well, I was looking myself for conservative outlets in New Hampshire. Of course, I live in the state. And originally came here, of course, because it was more conservative leaning at the time. And as we all know, it's changed the other way. So it has become increasingly hard to find any type of conservative voice in New Hampshire. And, you know, once again, as the state has changed, the mainstream media in New Hampshire has changed as well. Whether the dog wags the tail wags the dog. I think it's a mixture of both. But yeah, that's why I respect you guys so much. You're able to kind of allow that discourse that we really don't have in New Hampshire anymore. The conservative type of...
You talked about the media. It's interesting. When I moved here in 1990, the Union Leader was still the most conservative daily newspaper in America. It is not that anymore.
No.
It is still Republican. It is more moderate Republican at best, but it has gotten very mainstreamy.
Establishment-leaning.
Yeah. It's definitely not. Yeah, poor Mike had to give up his mic. Mike's micless. And you can call in.
They should hire us. We'd make it much more conservative.
We would. We would. We wouldn't be like Kathy Sullivan. 603-715-9689 if you'd like to call in and comment along with our commenters about the state of things in the state of New Hampshire.
And that it's specifically Chris P. Bacon, sitting out there in Arizona, one of our other commenters. We've got the line open for you. You got to call in, join us. Just had to say that, guys.
Yeah, his comments are very eclectic.
Yeah, to put it lightly.
Yes.
He's trying to fill in for C-Dog, E-Dog, who vanished off the face of the earth, but and he does a pretty good job. But he wasn't quite as C-Dog, E-Doggy as C-Dog, E-Dog was. But anyway, so we know you comment on Granite Rock, so there's obviously a sense of activism there and a seed of that sort of thing. What else do you guys do outside of that you would consider to be pro-liberty kind of, Are you doing anything else to shift the landscape? Or are you lurking, watching, paying attention, sharing that with friends and family who won't come down on you like a ton of bricks, like liberal, crazy people?
Well, no, I mean, in my case, I think probably if people look at my comments, they run kind of this in-between of Republican and Democrat. As like I said,
radical moderate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which is a great screen name, by the way.
But I kind of have my own philosophy, and it may seem, I guess, extreme or radical in a way that I'm very passionate in fighting against the progressives and the establishment Republicans. And, I do that, obviously. I try and do as much as I can, given, dealing with work and that type of thing.
Sure, you got work, you got a family, you got a life,
right.
and I mean, we know all that very well. I mean, we all have full-time jobs, and this is, it's not just a hobby, even though that's really what it is. It's just something that, I consider to be my midlife crisis moment, because in my mid-30s I discovered that I was really a conservative. I had kind of not been paying any attention to politics for a long time, and that's what got me to be a blogger. And now I do this, I post 1,500, 2,000 posts a year. I do a weekly podcast. I try to get to events when I can, but I still got kids in school. I got a wife. I got a house. I got dogs. I got crap you got to do, And so there's only so much you can do. But what we always tell people is do what you can. And always try to make sure that it's not interfering with your life. I mean, you need to be energized, and you need to feel, that people who are getting involved, because the minute they put pressure on their family because of a commitment to a political activity, that's what's going to give first.
Right.
So
exactly.
Get them used to it. Put your toe in the water and work your way in, which is what I did.
How about you, Alan?
Since 1996, I was the commander of the 1st Granite State Irregulars militia group, which has been disbanded. Way back when I was actually supposed to be on the Don Rondo show, if you remember him. No?
Not quite.
Don't remember him? Early 90s, late 90s, on Channel 9 in the Sunday mornings.
No?
I was supposed to be on the show, but
before me.
But he actually was sick that day, and they ran a rerun, so I didn't end up being on the show. I've been doing that for a while. I've been running a group called the Sons of Stark, where we take people who and we put them literally as spies in other political organizations.
I love that. We talk about that all the time because the Democrats do it. They all have.
Oh yeah. They do it, but we don't.
Not just trackers, but people who actually They come to your meetings, they come to your events, they go into your groups, and they try to, they did it to the Republican Party.
Well, I can think of a few people that, I could see them being from the other side doing that exact same thing.
Maybe you get those No More Labels groups. You get they just the progressives create these moderate groups and try to pry their way in to get the independents peeled away and to push their Overton window to the left. That's awesome.
We have proof of infiltration. It's called Jeb Bradley.
Yeah. Scott Brown.
But
Jeb Bradley.
But I started doing a list of all of the different events that the left was doing in New Hampshire, and I would send this list out to various right-wing groups in New Hampshire, saying, "Hey, look, this is what the other side is doing. You really should understand what they're doing and try to at least counter them at some point, or at least understand. Go there and take pictures." Anybody else remember the website Zombie Time? No. Okay. Zombie Time. He's a guy from California, I think. Anyways, but he used to go to the big rallies that they have up in San Francisco and stuff like that. Pretend to be one of them and go walk around and take pictures, and then he would post up basically the most outrageous version.
I do remember that now. Yes.
Right. Well, why aren't we doing that?
Sons of Stark, we are.
Exactly.
Well, we actually,
how do they reach you, by the way? Your Facebook page, anything?
Email? All I have is the email, which is warhorse_03826 @yahoo.com, and we can work through that.
We should get some of that information, whatever gets picked up, so we can put it up. Because, we just noticed the latest political incorrectness that's been displayed over Channel 9 with, is it Ben Tasker or Kyle Tasker? Kyle. And this is because Granite State Progress, that out-of-state money organization run by Xandra Rice Hawkins, has the money to go in. And they are constantly looking for those little tidbits, those little sound bites.
Well, we have to give credit where credit is due. Tammy Simons went off the rails at Kyle on this on Facebook for days.
Yeah. Yes, I can see that. But they're the ones that brought it up, publicized it and all that. And we don't have the folks on our side doing that.
Right. In fact, when I first started sending out the list of the different events, I had 3 or 4 organizations basically come back to me and go, "We don't care what they're doing." This is, this is, we have to treat this like a war. We're not shooting at each other, obviously, but we have to treat this. Yes, an ideological war, and we can't treat this like the Zimmerman letter in World War I, where we don't read other, gentlemen don't read other people's mail.
Yeah,
we need to be seeing what these people are doing. We need to try and get people in their meetings and understand how they're doing it. How else can we counter them?
Yeah, I've often said that the Republicans are still playing by Marcus of Queensberry boxing rules, while the progressives are using MMA.
Right.
But it's specifically the establishment Republicans that are doing that. And while the small R Republican base are sitting there wondering what is going on. And this is the whole thing. I mean, the establishment Republicans and the progressives, are actually in league with each other. There's collusion there. There is no question about it. The evidence is overwhelming that they work together to achieve a goal, And the people that are in the middle are the small R Republicans and the small D Democrats. And if back in my own personal history, I worked on the Perot campaign, which was, we almost had it. We almost got it. The vote was a third, and a third. So it was the closest we ever came. And the same exact thing is going on now. The people that were involved in the Perot campaign were Democrats and Republicans, small r, small d, and had this common vision, of the same vision that appears today in the grassroots kind of Tea Party-ish organizations, in these conservative organizations. Fiscally conservative, a mixture of social and moderate conservatism, and even some that were some in the pro-campaign that were pro-choice, or it was fairly, a jumble of, but they were blue collar, and that's the thing that it is today. I mean, kind of, if people can understand, and this goes into my own personal philosophy, that they're being hammered by both the establishment Republicans and the progressives. Both parties have been stolen. They've been co-opted by these two extreme groups. And it's actually us that are in the middle, being torn apart by these two groups.
We're going to take 60 seconds, and we'll get into that when we come back.
Steve McDonald here. Molly Shaheen, Senator Jean Shaheen's daughter, has a very expensive LA apartment where she lives and works, but for some strange reason, she voted here in New Hampshire. Elena Biden, niece to the man a heartbeat away from the presidency. Well, she never lived in New Hampshire at all, and she voted here and went back home. New Hampshire Democrat Emma Roos invited her adult children to leave their homes in Virginia, Washington, D.C. to claim they lived in New Hampshire to vote last November, and they went back home. New Hampshire State Senator Martha Fuller Clark, vice chair of the New Hampshire Democrat State Party, she had a whole bunch of people who weren't from here living in her home, including a paid congressional staffer and an ACLU lawyer from Arkansas. They don't live here. They all claim to be claiming to live here just so they could vote here and then leave. That's not all the Democrats who showed up to steal your votes and then leave, but that'll get you started. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Grok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Grok Talk.
All right, we're back. And we were having a discussion about what Radmod said, so let's just keep going. Did you want to give him that, or you got something to say first?
Yeah, I was going to say where, Rad, you were talking about, and then I'll hand the headset over, the Republicans and the Democrats sort of coming together. I was looking at more of Angelo Codeville's the ruling class versus the country class, where those two parties have merged into one. I mean, just look at the debt ceiling that passed in D.C. That was both the Republican leadership, not the Republican membership, but joined with the Democrats to pass that along. You know, everything's dripping down. But I wanted to ask one question. You can answer it whenever you want. You guys are on our site all the time. What is it that you wish that we would do that we're not doing? And now I'll pass this over.
Personally, nothing. You guys are middle of the line. You are slamming. You have correctly identified. This is, respectfully, this is just as an observer, that both extremes on the left and on the right are damaging the middle class. And just to put it, in black and white, that appears to be kind of the philosophy of the grassroots organizations like the Tea Party. They're equally ticked off against the establishment Republicans and the progressives. And I'm a firm believer that they are distinctly separate entities. Just as much as the establishment Republicans are different from the small R Republicans, the same thing goes for the Democrats.
That's like how they try and say that the Tea Party is an anti-Democrat thing, where it's not. It started under the Republicans.
Well,
Yeah, turn it back on now.
It's an anti-ruling class thing.
Right.
Right. And that's the thing. The rank-and-file Democrats, the small D Democrats in this state, who are majority blue-collar, working-class people, have been, royally hammered by the progressives and the establishment Republicans. Because if you trace what's going on, you have to look at what's going on globally. Because what's going on globally is driving what's going on locally. And, once you kind of get the picture of the movement that's going on, I'm sure, Mike, you know what I'm talking about. There's an entire, I think we've discussed this before with the IMF and especially what's going on recently. But this drive for forced austerity is killing the middle class in this country.
Right, and it's false austerity too. Governments need to go through an austerity program and slim themselves down. But when they talk about austerity, what they really mean is taking more taxes from the people that can barely afford to pay them and reducing government services. And they use that to hammer both sides. And it's just the wrong way. The government itself needs to shrink, and that's the bit they don't understand. And I would also say that establishment Republicans are progressives too. Remember, Theodore Roosevelt was one of the first progressives. They differ only in what they want to do with government, not in whether it should continue growing and continue costing more. And you on the Republican side, you have the neocon wing that want to be at war with everybody, and you have the wing that want to impose government morals. And on the other side, you've got people who just want to boss you around for the sake of bossing you around, and want to take the money of anybody who produces anything and give it to people who don't produce anything. And it worked out really well. William Bradford could tell you about that, but we forget history.
Correct. Yeah.
So, I'm at a complete loss for a question. Mike? I just derailed my train of thought.
Oh, sorry.
But hang on, if I can just chime in.
Chuck, please do. That's why you're here.
I don't know.
Now, go for it. You start it up.
People, kind of want to understand to, use the internet, research everything. That I'm mentioning here, you can find on the internet. The IMF has just put out a letter that is demanding redistributive wealth amongst all the global nations, the underserved global nations, at the exact same time that they just put, I believe it was Melendez from New Jersey, Democrat from New Jersey, just put forward the bill to give $1 billion to the IMF, who's going to take that money and is going to prop up the EU and prop up the Ukraine with it. $1 billion when they're taking pensions and Social Security and Medicaid away from our senior citizens in this country and forcing this fake austerity on the middle class that's stripping them of everything that they own.
Well, it's not that they're taking away so much of the stuff from our oldsters, although by destroying Medicare to expand Medicaid and Obamacare, they're doing that. But to be frank, $1 billion is a chump change in the size of government as we have it today. It shouldn't ever have to have said that, but it is. And secondly, it doesn't really matter a damn whether they vote money out of the public treasury, because guess what? The Federal Reserve is doing that in the trillions already. It is propping up these failed banking regimes in Central Europe, in mainland Europe, and has been doing since 2008 at least.
Right, and which is going to lead. If anybody wants to research, the drawing rights from the IMF, the special drawing with the SDR, which is going to kind of be, they've got a global economic reset coming, which is going to kind of monetize the debt and kind of wipe a lot of it out or reorganize it, which is going to lead to special drawing rights for nations. But, once again, that's talk about squirrels. We're getting off on it. I don't want to, and I don't want to monopolize the time either.
Feel free. No, you're here as a guest. You can follow your own squirrel as you wish.
But I mean, the thing is, people need to research, especially the middle class in New Hampshire, in order to understand what's driving all these moves. You have to understand what's going on globally. And you're going to hear these words parroted by the national leaders in this country and the state leaders in this country, in this state. Okay, they are going to be mimicking exactly what's being driven at the global level. So, and this is the thing. This is how you can tell who's on the same page, by who's pushing the same agendas. So, once again, and what they're doing is they're putting the squeeze on the middle class. It's undeniable, both small R Republicans and small D Democrats, as Obamacare was intended to do, is to literally force the middle class, force austerity onto the middle class, who are considered living well above their means, force them to sell, to go bankrupt in order to afford medical treatment. There's no other way to look at it but to say that this is a direct attack because, as I think I stated in one of my posts, the poor don't have to pay for medical care.
They don't get much of it either.
Well, it all depends. Nobody's ever been refused medical care in this country.
No, but look at the outcomes. People on Medicaid, actually, it's been shown that you're better off having no health care, being the Hispanic in the street, if you'll pardon my racism, and walking into an emergency room with no insurance, and you'll get treated pretty darn well because, A, the hospitals are required by law to serve you, and B, Most states, until Obamacare subsumes it all, were making compensatory payments to those hospitals. On the other hand, if you have Medicaid, which pays for your coverage but pays very badly, you get minimal treatment, the shoddiest services, and your risk of dying is significantly higher.
And we're going to be joining them shortly. Yes.
Your risk of dying is significantly higher than if you had no insurance at all, like the Hispanic on the street.
Right, and that's the thing. This is about standardizing medical care across the economic spectrum.
It worked out so well for the Canadians and the Brits.
This is exactly.
Like the Native Americans have a saying where don't get sick after March. Well, the Native Americans in the United States are on single payer. Basically, the U.S. government pays for their medical care. Yes. They have a saying, don't get sick after March, because there's no more money left.
That's when the money runs.
That's what we talked about last week or the week before, how this will become a two-class system where you will have the people who can afford boutique care and who will buy care outside the system, and everybody else will be trapped in the system, which will be declining and degrading and getting crappier and crappier.
And if you remember, Hillary Clinton...
Just like the Russian apparatchiks, they'll get whatever they want, and the rest of us will suffer.
Well, Hillary Clinton was specifically saying she wanted to make that against the law. Boutique medical care.
Yeah, so well, of course, because they will outlaw your ability to buy your own. Wasn't that actually the case in Canada for a while? Yes. And the people practically lynched the government over it?
Right. Yeah, there. If I remember, she was kind of spearheading this health care reform way back.
Yeah,
when she was First Lady.
Hillary Care.
I mean, granted, she deserves credit for calling attention to the system before it got to the point where it was at. I mean, but once again, the solution a little bit off, off target. But once again, I mean, there was no question that the medical system in this country, although as great as it was inequitable across the economic spectrum. Understood, but no problem. The solution, however, to zap the middle class in order to pay for it, when you've got our government paying out in foreign aid ungodly sums of money that could be directed back to
people
our
that
own
don't
people.
like us.
Well, actually, this week I've resolved all of New Hampshire's problems in one post.
And that was great. Yeah.
If you go read it, I said, you know what? We're in a great situation where we can create a new New Hampshire advantage. If New Hampshire opens up its market to anybody who can legally sell insurance anywhere in the world, and we open up those markets, we will attract businesses, which will create jobs, which will create revenue, which will solve our revenue problem, our jobs problem, and our healthcare problem, and it'll cost us a lot less.
And you know what? There's a bill to do it. Unfortunately, the bill's problem is the bill. Let me explain. HB 1541, sponsored by Bill O'Brien. The bill would basically open up healthcare freedom in New Hampshire and poke the government in the eye with a sharp stick at the same time by allowing you to buy anything you want, where you want, when you want, crafted the way you want it, and across state lines if you want. The problem is the other bill. Because Bill O'Brien's sponsoring it, who's a great guy, the progressives of both parties are up in arms over it.
Well, I've made it clear that Republicans need to embrace this idea, they need to sell the idea, they need to push its benefits, and they need to run on it. Because rather than just running against Obamacare, rather than just saying, well, what they have sucks, and it does, everybody knows it, except for a very small percentage of people, you need to go out and say you have a solution, and it's a real solution, and it'll work, and it'll solve a jobs problem, it'll solve a revenue problem, it'll solve a healthcare problem.
Go out and read HB 1541. It's a terrific bill. And the bill sponsoring it is a terrific bill, too. The thing is, we need to get some Republicans or conservatives that are going to stand up and say, I'm going to run on this, and I'm going to win, and I'm going to push this forward in November.
Do you guys want to share any contact information?
The charge of the cavalry.
You don't have to, but if you want anybody to reach out to you for anything.
I'm on the
You're on the internet. Go to GraniteGrock.com, read their comments. You can follow their discuss feeds because you just click on their name and you can see all the good things they comment to the world. My name's Steve McDonald. I am here with Skip Murphy and Mike Rogers. Thank you to Alan and Radical Moderate for coming on the program. We'll be back next week with more news and information. I'd also like to remind you that the last Saturday of the month we will not have a show, so don't try to listen to it. Have a great weekend. Thanks for listening to Grok Talk, brought to you by GraniteGrok.com, New Hampshire's leading conservative website. We'd like to make you an offer we hope you can't refuse. Do you have a local group or nonprofit? Do you have your own cable access show or podcast? We'd like to promote you right here on Grok Talk for free. You can send us your own 30-second audio promo, and then we'll play it during our podcast. If you'd like to take advantage of this opportunity, please email Steve at GraniteGrok.com. If you have comments or suggestions about this show or would like to recommend a guest, just email Steve at GraniteGrok.com. Since Gene Shaheen took office, the federal government has added $7 trillion to the national debt. There are more people still unemployed than when she took office, and 2.4 million Americans still can't find work. Most of the jobs that are actually created are only part-time. For the small price of $7 trillion, Gene Shaheen made millions of jobs disappear like magic.